Okay, I was remembering there's a bookstore in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, called Banyan Books. And unfortunately, the light is really lousy. And, if I turn my hat around backwards. Now, the front of the hat is LB as in pounds, and then it says Dirt Road Diaries. And this would be like the diaries you would create if if you were like somebody who was into having a Jeep and going all over the place, which I am, but I don't have a Jeep, and unfortunately I don't have any diaries to tell you. Well, I do, but I'm not going to bring it up right now. The subject is when I lived in Vancouver and I went to Banyan Books, I used to just browse. And I would browse and spend hours in this bookstore. I just love this bookstore, Banyan Books. They have an online Banyan too. And I stumbled across some books that were just, I can't say anything other than bizarro. Bizarro, like that comic strip, Bizarro. Voyagers 2 was the book. And it was like I would open it up and flip through it, and it was like Star Wars, but schizophrenic Star Wars. Like you'd read, and it was like James Joyce. If you've ever tried to read Ulysses, it's just gibberish and balderdash. This book is like that. It was just weird. It reminded me when I used to play. Uh, Technically, I think I was an officer. I was a background actor in Vancouver, and I was on Battlestar Galactica. They'd put me in an officer uniform, and I'd be in the background. But, in Battlestar Galactica, they'd go off in their little Raptor spaceships, the fighters, and when you listened to them, it was just radio traffic. And this Voyagers 2 book, it was like just putting the soundtrack to Battlestar Galactica as the Raptors are doing and what they're doing, their fights against the Cylons and just the radio traffic. And they put the radio traffic down on paper in this book. So that's why it seems schizophrenic, because, if you're listening to a battle and it's just the radio broadcasts of the different, the craft as they go around doing what they're doing, and they're talking codes and everything. And that was the impression I got from Voyagers 2. It was just kooky. But every time I went into Banyan Books, there was something about this book. I would always go back and look at it again, and it would always baffle me. It was just the most bizarre book, but I would go and I would find this book. I wouldn't leave Banyan without taking a look, and I always wondered, well, should I buy this book? And it wasn't a cheap book, and there was a whole series of books from Azurite Press. And I never ended up buying it, but every time I would go in there and I just flip through some of the. Couldn't read very much because it was like. It would cause schizophrenia in my head. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't, but I was addicted to it somehow too. Anyways, sometime later, a man came from God knows where, somewhere in the United States, and did a seminar in Vancouver, and it was on related to this subject of this book, Voyagers 2. I didn't even know it at the time. It was my friend's landlady who was said that this guy was coming, and she was the one that was the producer, brought this guy in. So it was a small group, I don't know, maybe 20 people. And this guy came in, and he had a flip chart, and he didn't have like overhead slides or anything. So he was just drawing on the flip chart with a marker. And he had all these diagrams and things. And it was so complicated, but I was trying my best to follow what he was saying, and I was trying to draw the diagrams. And, well, it was the most. I said bizarro before. I have to come up with another word. But it had elements of Judaism, because at one point he was like talking about like Adam Kadmon, which is like the cosmic man of Judaism, and about healing ourselves with it wasn't really a Jewish prayer. It was basically a prayer in English, but it was basically like, God, heal my head now, heal my arms now, heal my heart now, heal this. And it was just, that was the healing prayer. But then he went on and he had all these diagrams, and they're lost in the sands of time. I've moved so many times, I don't have it anymore. But, and I can't remember the name, but I know the man was the I don't know if he was actually married, but he was the ex-partner of the woman who's most famous, the author of Voyagers and Voyagers 2. And her last name is Dean, Deane, and her first name is really weird. It's like Ayadasha Dean. And he was still teaching her stuff, but he said, well, she's divinely directed, and she's doing her own thing, and I'm on my own mission. So anyway, he came to talk about this stuff, and it filed away in my little brain, because it's not the only seminar. I study so many things, and I really I was warned by Dr. David Hawkins that a lot of the stuff that are in the spiritual communities is astral stuff. It's not really spiritual, it's astral, which is like dream worlds almost. But the thing is that Earth, everyone thinks Earth is like a physical planet. No, Earth is a dream world. It's a dream world, which means it's astral. If you're going to reach enlightenment, you have to pass through astral realms. You don't have to, but you can get waylaid forever in astral realms. And the idea is, if you want to get to higher levels like Buddhic consciousness, causal consciousness, all these different planes, mental planes and emotional planes, and I get so emotional. You have to know that if you're in a dream world, you can play there, but know that that is not your destiny. If you want to reach higher parts of consciousness, you have to know, okay, this is a dream world. So all of this stuff that is all about everything on planet Earth and everything to do with extraterrestrials, most of it has to do with dream world and having fun in dream worlds. But if you want to go and get enlightened like Buddha, you have to move along. But I still like talking about this because it's still fun. And, if you don't enjoy your journey along the way and, make your video post, then, what's the whole point of the journey? So, what else can I tell you about Voyagers and all this stuff? Well, somehow the people at the Halls of Amenti have got some kind of a feud going on with the people at Wingmakers. I did on my Instagram a thing about Wingmakers, and I'm not going to try and explain either of these subjects. I know their names, and that's about as much as I know. I know they're both astral. And they're litigious, so hopefully they won't tell me to take my video down. I'm not saying anything other than the fact it's astral, and I know it's astral because it's about stuff that's in... If you're in the Buddhic plane, your consciousness is not bodies, light bodies, and you're not interacting the way that we do on Earth, okay? It's all peaceful, and it's one thing. Absolute. Okay, so this guy in his seminar said, he was talking about like the history of our solar system, and I think it had to do with the creation of the asteroid belt. He's not the first person to come up with the idea that the asteroid belt was created by a blown-up planet. And the people on the blown-up planet, their souls couldn't go back onto that planet because it was blown up, so they had to go and incarnate on other planets, including Earth. It's so complicated, because I don't... if I got this wrong, please, I'm sorry. I'm trying to piece it together, and the schizophrenic book. It's for me. It's beyond me, and I'm pretty bright, but I'm not Einstein. But anyway, so there was I think they called it Tiamat, or Tiramat was the name of that planet, and somebody else has called this planet Marduk, I think. And then the other thing is that if you go into the people that are into all this woo light working stuff, um, and some of the apparent people who have extraterrestrials that have come to visit planet Earth, because there's other dimensions. I mean, the planet Earth that we're used to, that we think there's only one globe, as long as you're not a flat earther, I mean, that's another topic. It just gets, like, it's mind-boggling. But they say that there are higher dimensions than what we're used to. And in higher dimensions, there's other civilizations and other people, but they're still part of, on Earth they call it Gaia or Nova Gaia. And, in Stargate you had ascension, so if you ascend from Earth, you might end up at a higher dimensional version of Earth. Shambhala, the mythology is Shambhala, it's a higher dimensional place related to Earth. And we know from NASA that planet Venus, you can't go there because the planet, it was a runaway greenhouse effect. It's super hot. It's poisonous atmosphere. So, I mean, if you went there and you put a dome down and you pumped oxygen and nitrogen in, I suppose you could live there that way. But people who do this channeling say that there are higher dimensional versions of Venus that are paradise. So in our dimension, Venus is, it's Hades, it's like nothing can live there. But in higher dimensional versions of Venus, it's beautiful. So it's quite possible that the blown up asteroid belt in our dimension is still, I have to use the word, there's not enough words in English to describe all these things, so I'm going to say planetary, because it's basically a firmament that you can be around or something. And then I think of that Robin Williams movie about the sweet hereafter. That's not the name of the movie, but it was the one, What Dreams May Come. And he went looking for his wife who had killed herself, and he went through the Elysian fields or something. It is pretty much Astral. It's gorgeous, beautiful place, beautiful, 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 but it's Astral. But it's quite possible that this blown up asteroid belt area does have a higher dimensional planet that's still a planet. And then there's the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Mars is the god of war and Venus is the goddess of love, and that's why, men and women, at least in the past, when they had stereotypical male roles and male personalities, and the same thing for women. I don't know if it's the same so much now. Maybe with some people that are very conservative, but more people are more combining attributes of male and female within themselves. Divine feminine, divine masculine. There was other words, but they escape me now. Anyways, I just wanted to bring this up to you because they were talking about this Adam Kadmon, the cosmic man, and I talked quite a bit about Dr. David Hawkins, who the late doctor, he passed away, but Dr. Hawkins said that he was all about the scale of consciousness. The scale of consciousness is what you can use muscle testing to determine where someone lies on the scale of consciousness. And on planet Earth, as we know it, the scale runs from 1 to 1,000. And it's not linear, it's logarithmic. So if you go up the scale, your power increases logarithmically. I've forgotten what it's exponentially. It just means it's not like 1 plus 1 equals 2. It's 1 plus 1 equals 10 kind of thing. So Dr. Hawkins said that the evolution of humanity is that we are actually going to be called a new name. So instead of being Homo sapiens sapiens, we are going to become Homo spiritus. Basically, when we get our consciousness high enough. I'm not exactly sure at what level of consciousness you become Homo spiritus, but certainly by level 1000. Now that's just on the planet. To give you an idea, Dr. Hawkins said that 1 on the scale is the consciousness of an amoeba or a single-celled organism. 1000 is the consciousness of Jesus or Buddha, various other people as well. 200 was a very critical level because anything below 200 is negativity. Once you get to level 200, I think it's labeled courage, then you have climbed out of negativity. And lower levels are things like anger, apathy, grief, pride. So classically, in the Catholic Church, these would be the vices. So anything below 200 is living with vices. Lust would be another one. Once you get above there, you start dropping your vices more and more. It doesn't mean like you hit 200 and then you become a saint. You don't reach sainthood until you get to maybe 600 on the scale. But Dr. Hawkins said that the history of the planet it was a hell world, which means that the planet as a whole calibrated under 200 up until the harmonic concordance of 1987, maybe, at which time it popped just above 200, maybe 202, and it's up till the time when he died, and I haven't had a recent calibration, but it was just over 200, and it was like blipping up and down right there. And the reason that the planet was above 200 was not because of the people so much, but it was because there were enlightened sages who had very high levels of consciousness on the planet. So maybe 6 or 8 of them all over the planet. No one knows where, no one knows who they are. But the thing is if you got a very high level of consciousness, you can counterbalance enormous numbers of beings that are negative. So now what else goes on with this story is Dolores Cannon, the late Dolores Cannon, who wrote about the 3 waves of volunteers, the star seeds. After World War II, on Hell World, planet Earth, when the nuclear weapons were unleashed on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, the call went out by the planet Gaia. Gaia is actually not just a solid rock with an iron core. There's actually a spirit named Gaia. I think it's a feminine spirit, but, I haven't talked with Gaia. Maybe I should. But she called out and she said, I need help because the humans that are infesting the surface of my planet are starting to blow things up with nuclear weapons. So the star seeds, there's some kind of cosmic law that says that they just can't come and interfere on planet Earth. There's some cosmic law of non-interference. I think it's stupid, but it's astral, and we live in an astral world, and they got these stupid rules. It's not my rules, and if it was up to me, I wouldn't have them. But they play along with this non-interference rule. So the only way that they could get the star seeds to the planet, they couldn't beam them down like, in Star Trek or something. They had to actually incarnate, be born as humans, through human mothers. And then they had to make some agreements because the planetary rulers of planet Earth were demonic beings. And so they had to make deals with the dark rulers of planet Earth. And one of those rules was that they had to essentially have a mind wipe. They had to forget who they were. And then so they're just like everyone else. They're born, and there's very few humans that means there's some stories that some little children can remember past lives, but it's very, very rare. Most humans cannot remember their past lives. And so, if you're a star seed, you're born and you've had a mind wipe and you don't know you're a star seed. You don't even hear about these things. You go through regular school and regular society and television and everything else, and you don't hear about these things until you maybe have what's called an awakening, or you're just curious and you come across this stuff. Like me, am I a starseed? I have no idea. I have no memory of living on other star systems. But I have had one person who muscle tested and is quite intuitive and said, yes, that I have had lifetimes on other planet. So was I one of these 3 waves of volunteers? He didn't really get into it. I don't know. So it could be that I was not a star seed like the Dolores Cannon people, and I'm just a very curious human being that was already here, reincarnating and reincarnating on the planet. I could have been one of those demonic things. I probably was. I mean, if this story of Dr. Hawkins tells you is true, Dolores Cannon tells you is true, I was probably a demonic being just like, most of the rest of you watching it now. And the thing is that the idea is that you start off maybe as an amoeba, or maybe a rock, or a plant or something, and then as you reincarnate, you take different forms, and your consciousness grows. And, we used to think that the top consciousness on the planet was humans. No one say that whales and dolphins aren't smarter than us, but I don't know. And that doesn't talk about the mythological creatures like the fairy realms and the elves and the elementals and all these. They're just words to me. I don't know. I mean, I do know some of these fairy people. I don't know them and like to see them, but it's another story. Anyway, they do exist and they're real beings. And who's the smartest one? You have to muscle test each individual being to see where they fit on the scale of consciousness. Let's see, what else can I tell you? So it goes from 200, which is courage, and then it goes up to if you're in the 400s, you're basically like a very logical person. Everything is rational, logical. Then you hit 500, and it's the beginning of a higher consciousness, which is love. It's kind of conditional love. It's not romantic love. When you get up to 540 on the scale, it's a magic number. It means unconditional love. Dr. Hawkins said that if you're on a spiritual path, your goal for this lifetime should be to reach, I hate the word should, but that's what he said, so I'll use it, reach 540 on the scale of consciousness, unconditional love. And he says if you hit 540, then that's a really good job. High fives all around, because that's a very high level of consciousness, very high. I mean, compared to 1,000, it doesn't sound high, but, for humanity, that is really incredibly good. So high fives if you make 540. I'm not going to brag and tell you that the guy that told me that I was from other star systems or had past lives there said that I was at 540, but he did say that. I rarely am allowed to muscle test anymore. You have to have permission from God in order to do it, and I don't have permission most of the time anymore. It's just my own story, but that's another story. But so I cannot confirm it myself. And just because you reach higher levels of consciousness, apparently, I mean, no one knows for sure. Maybe he's distorted and it's wrong. Maybe I'm a demonic being that's pretending, a wolf in sheep's clothing. But I was trying to say that just because you're at a higher level of consciousness doesn't mean that you don't seem to have what we call colds and aches and pains and things like that. And in fact, Dr. Hawkins said that quite often, well, pretty much everyone who wants to climb to higher levels of consciousness, to evolve their consciousness, is going to have physical issues that are going to come up. And people will go to the doctor and say, I'm having heart palpitations, or I've got eczema, or I've got aches and pains, or, any number of symptoms. My eyesight's gone blurry. I got ringing in the ears. Dr. Hawkins said that these things, unlike what you're taught by normal human doctors, these things, if you're on a spiritual path, these are actually signs. They're spiritual signs that you are ascending to higher levels of consciousness. And what is happening is that there are things in either your personal consciousness, unconsciousness related to you, that are things that are unconscious. So your past lives, if you've had a memory wipe, those things are unconscious to you, but they're still relevant to you. So these things are unconscious to you, but they're still there. And then so there's your personal things, and then there's things that you're part of collective. So your collective is your family lineage, all the people in your family, all the people of your ethnic background, your current city, your current country, perhaps your profession. And then there's the general collective consciousness of all the humans all together. So all of these things are full of things that are unconscious. And as you raise to higher levels of consciousness, these things come up because they need to be brought to your attention. And it can get very, very painful until you figure out what it is that's unconscious that wants to go and spring itself onto your consciousness. So, the problems that you have when you go to higher levels of consciousness is that Dr. Hawkins said Jesus sweated blood in the Garden of Gethsemane. And that was because of, the consciousness level then was much lower than it is today. So the more people that go to higher levels of consciousness as humans, it makes it way easier for other humans to rise to higher levels of consciousness, believe it or not. So you have to really have a lot of gratitude for the people who have already reached enlightenment, because when they did it, it was way, way, way almost impossible thing to do, to go from total hell world to become enlightenment. So the corollary of this is, why aren't you pursuing enlightenment, given the fact that these other ones have gone before you and they have made it much easier? They've raised the consciousness level of the collective above 200, so it's actually the collective is it's easier to basically quantum leap out of it. Dr. Hawkins said the main thing that happens is that you are already enlightened, but there are all kinds of these unconscious things that drag down your collective consciousness. All the negativities, all the vices. The vices are what prevents you from experiencing enlightenment. So your natural state is enlightenment. You are light. You are light, you are conscious, you are awareness, very high levels of love, that beyond love they call it enlightenment, but you go through love and you just keep going beyond love. So that is your natural true state, because that's where you came from. The Creator itself is love and light and enlightenment. So, but when you're here, and how it all got this way, well, there's different stories. I mean, it could be that, small creatures are like a scorpion. It uses venom to kill, and that's how it gets its energy. At higher levels of consciousness, beyond where I am, you can live on prana or mana or chi. It's basically a different form of energy. You don't have to eat food to get your energy. You get your energy from these other things. But if you're at a low level, you have to eat other creatures, unless you're a plant and then you use photosynthesis. But if you're an animal kingdom kind of being, then you've got to go and eat other things. So I've got so many things I can talk about with regard to that. But as a developing creature, a scorpion has to sting its prey, or a snake has to use venom to kill a prey or something, or if you're a carnivore like a tiger, you have to use brutal ways. So on the scale of consciousness, like carnivorous beings would calibrate generally lower than herbivores. So like a deer should calibrate higher than a tiger, even though the tiger is higher on the food chain because it eats the deer. And then you get humans, which are omnivores, and that's why a lot of people say that if you want to raise your consciousness, it's a good thing to go to a vegan diet. Am I on a vegan diet? I have done it from time to time. It's nothing to do with my health. It's more to do with my living situation. The people that I live with, my mom and dad, do like to be omnivorous, and they cook stuff, and I eat the food. I mean, I could eat separate food or just keep the meat away from it, but then she cooks too much food. I could tell her not, but old people, they just going to cook what they're going to cook, and rather than see it go to waste, I eat it. I'm sorry. I do eat meat. No one say I don't enjoy it. I do enjoy it, but do I feel guilty about it? Yes, I do. I feel like Dr. Dolittle in the Dr. Dolittle movies. He's like, I love the animals, but they taste so good, So you can throw darts at me for that, but and if there's bad karma about it, I'm aware of it, but it's the balance of things. It's like it's there, and it's worse for you to waste meat, but the animal is given its life to give you some food. I think it's far worse to waste the meat than to turn your nose up and say, I will not touch it, and then see it go in the garbage. So, it's your living situation. And that's why you have collective karma. Because even if you rise yourself in consciousness, you are part of a collective. Being on Earth, my old teacher said, it's about relationships. And my crowd calls them relationships because everyone knows that relationships are very difficult, but that's why we are here with multiples of us, because part of our lessons on Earth are to learn, and you learn through relationships with other things, other beings, etc. So anyway, to wrap it all up, if you are going to raise your consciousness and you're taking psychedelic drugs, DMT, for example, or LSD, a lot of people say, oh, this is a way to raise your consciousness or see what God is. Now, it's a very mind-blowing thing to do psychedelic drugs, magic mushrooms, and some of these other things, ketamines, and crystal meth, and what's the other one? Ecstasy. Ecstasy, if you drink a root beer, sarsaparilla is what they make root beer out of. And strangely enough, sarsaparilla is what they make ecstasy out of. Very strange chemistry. It's very strange, like cocaine is illegal in most countries other than maybe Portugal and Uruguay. But you can buy solar cane, which you put on your sunburn, and it's made with benzocaine. The cane, C-A-I-N-E, on the end of the word, of both those things means the molecules are very similar chemically. So you can legally buy benzocaine, but not cocaine. Now, I have not got anyone around me that's ever snorted benzocaine, but in Philip K. Dick's book that was made into a movie with Keanu Reeves, Through a Scanner Darkly, the character that Keanu Reeves plays knows, either he does or some people he knows in the book, buy solar cane or these kind of legal things in the drugstore, and then they take them home and they do some kind of a cook-up and they get the benzocaine out of it, and then I think they sell it as cocaine. So maybe in your city, if people are saying it's cocaine, maybe it didn't get imported from Colombia. It was made from lidocaine is another one. I mean, these are basically anesthetics. The wonders of designer drugs. So what happens when you take these kind of different kinds of drugs, psychedelic drugs, is that temporarily they remove your vices and everything negative. So that's why people say, I feel high. Well, it's like high consciousness. Unfortunately, when the drug wears off, your liver basically dismantles the molecule and you're high no more, then you go back, and then that's where addiction comes in, because you want to keep taking the drug because you want to feel high. And it keeps getting broken down in your body. You got to buy more and more and more. You want to keep taking more because you enjoy the feeling. But if somebody just experiments and comes across this stuff and doesn't understand exactly why they feel the way they do when they take the drug, that's where addiction comes in. But if you have somebody who guides and says, oh, you did this and you felt good, well, this is what's really happening. And Dr. Hawkins has got a lecture on YouTube about it. And it's basically, it masks all the negativities. So if you want, you can become addicted to this drug, and it's the road to ruin. Everyone knows it. You'll spend all your money and all your time doing, chasing the drug. So that's why you go on a spiritual quest. And a spiritual quest, unless you're like, some kind of a psychonaut, but you're not going to get there because you're dependent upon some drug. If you're dependent on taking some plant medication, ayahuasca, or magic mushrooms to make you enlightened, it ain't gonna work. It ain't going to work because you're dependent on these things. What you have to do is you have to do it the old-fashioned way without any kind of psychedelic drug whatsoever. So, if somebody says take it and then you'll see what it's like, then you'll get this, this weird experience that you might feel high or you might see things and you think, oh, this is wonderful. And it might egg you on to go and try and do it without the drugs, hopefully. The thing is that what you experience on these drugs is not enlightenment, even though people will swear, and there's Dr. Ball, B-A-L-L, who swears that if you take DMT, you will meet God. No, you won't. And I sent him an email and I said, Dr. Ball, did you ever consider Carlos Castaneda? Castaneda said there's a thing called the mold of man, and if you experience the mold of man, you might think that you've touched the face of God. And I said, I consider this, Dr. Ball. Dr. Ball wrote me back and said Castaneda was a fraud. And he said, so basically he rejected everything I had to. Dr. Ball's an idiot. And if you read his book, it's fascinating. But basically he went to like Burning Man. He did all kinds of DMT. And he thinks he's an enlightened being. And he thinks that where he's at is in touch with God. He's not. I mean, we're all in touch with God, because even if you're a demonic, I mean, the true God is everywhere. And, that's... So, but I mean, to be conscious of it and to be run by the good side of God, it's a different thing altogether. So, Dr. Ball is completely wrong. He's a wingnut. If you think that you're going to take DMT, ayahuasca, or lick the back of the psychedelic frog and you're going to, become Jesus, you're insane. And Dr. Ball is insane. Now, Castaneda said the mold of man is an incredible thing if you experience it. And no one say that Castaneda didn't do psychedelic things like peyote and magic mushrooms. They did. But that was really in the first book. In the later books, it's weird because the one shaman, Don Juan Matus, was constantly smoking his mixture. The little smoke was pretty much magic mushrooms. But I'm telling you, you don't need these things. But they're here on the planet, and I'm not going to go further on this. I'm already at 38 minutes on this lecture. So what you do on your spiritual path, more than anything else, is you meditate. You meditate to raise your consciousness. How do you meditate? Try and get away from people. Lock yourself into your bedroom, your bathroom. Go for a walk and find a nice park. Lie down on the grass and close your eyes. Now, there's different things that you really need to do with meditation, because there's some learning that goes along with it. I mean, part of it is learning, what's going on in your mind, and learning about thoughts and what you are in relationship to thoughts. And in the end, the shaman Don Juan Matus of Carlos Castaneda's books, he said what you are pursuing is inner silence. So in other words, You want the thoughts to stop. Inner silence. So at higher levels of consciousness, thoughts go away. If you are someone who is in touch with these higher levels, in order to communicate with regular non-meditational human beings who are not on any kind of spiritual path, you have to use words. So you are like a transformer. You're transforming realms of no thoughts, or where ideas don't come in the form of words. They're more, it's telepathy. In telepathy, you can get words, but you can also get information without words. And what happens, you get sick of words. You get sick of words. It's too many words. And, it's just because words are difficult. Everyone knows, even from like grade 2, second grade, that words have more than one meaning. It's fun to play around with them, but it also gets to the point where at higher levels of consciousness, these multiple levels of meaning of words, you can study them, but after a while you get tired of them. You want to get beyond words. Because communication becomes difficult, because you're trying to figure out if the person's got the right meaning for the word you're using. And, English that I'm talking in, all the languages on planet Earth are languages of duality. They're low frequency languages. They're between you and me, and we're separate things. But you look at quantum physics, and we're all part and parcel of the same quantum field. So rising to the level beyond Homo sapiens sapiens to Homo spiritus, when you get to be Homo spiritus, some people talk about light language. I don't understand light language. I've heard it. It's like Zulu warriors going. Do I get any information from it? No. Do I hope there's something in there? I'll listen to it. It sounds interesting, but do I understand it? No. So I discount light language altogether. It's just going. And if I'm getting something, it's unconscious to me. So maybe there's something unconscious that I'm just not at a higher level of consciousness to understand it. But if someone's saying light language, you should go learn it. Well, if you feel inclined, go ahead. But I don't understand it. So are we done? That is quite a long lecture, 42 minutes. To wrap it all up, meditate. You can take a meditation course. There are places where you can go, Vipassana meditation retreats that are by donation all over the place. Not where I live, though. So, you have to go someplace to these things. Or, maybe you could go to a Buddhist monastery, or, Do I see problems with this? Well, if they're trying to give you a doctrine, in other words, there's teachings that go along with the meditation that are religious in nature, don't think that they are the be-all and end-all of the truth. And I always, if there's a chance for me to go and sample something on a smorgasbord, I do. And this is what they say: don't do that. They say find one spiritual path and do the one spiritual path. Otherwise, you're a spiritual dilettante and you'll never get anywhere. It's a lie. I'm a dilettante and I have got somewhere. So, don't listen to them. On the other side of the street, there's an old Islamic proverb that I like to quote. It says, a man with one book is an idiot. So, if you're a Bible-thumping fundamentalist of Christian persuasion, and that's the only book that you look to for truth, then you're an idiot. Or, the Quran, or anything. You need to have lots of different ways of looking at the subject of enlightenment and spirituality, and that's part of your journey. It's not like to go and take a pill and I'm instantly enlightened, like Dr. Ball. I'm going to go and take DMT and I'm enlightened. And no, that's not your journey. It's not. It's like that's the quick fix that everyone in the world wants. They want a quick fix. I want to buy a course in enlightenment. I want to be Buddha in one afternoon. And then I don't even want to go. I want to be, like, I'll sign up for it, not show up, and just give me a certificate or something. I'll give you extra money. This is the kind of thing that we're used to. I'm sorry. It's like, if you're going to go to the gym and you're going to go and build muscle, no pain, no gain. You have to do the work, unless you're genetically born with, a body that is very muscular. And there are people like that. It blows my mind. Some people that are just, born like giants. Some people cannot seem to put on muscle no matter how much exercise they do. I'm one of those people. Perhaps if I worked harder at it, I would put on, well, when I was young, I did lift weights. Did I put on muscle? No. Just didn't. It's not in my metabolism. I mean, if I focused, I'm sure somebody would say, I can help you. If you spend 4 hours a day at the gym every day, we will put on muscle, put you on a special diet. But the thing of the matter is, I would love to be a professional baseball player or whatever and make my living from sports. At this stage in the game, I'm too old. So, and I'm not looking to go and turn this body into Zeus or something. It would be lovely, but I've got more important things to do. It's basically to go and do what I do. I talk. I'm a talker, and I'm a researcher, and I'm a comedian, and I'm a healer. Well, am I a healer? I hate to say so. I did another lecture when I said, in actuality, no one is a healer. No one is a doer. But, that's from higher levels of consciousness. On the level of consciousness of 3D Earth, somebody that calibrates at, say, 250, am I a healer? Yes. Because healing comes when I'm around. In the Harry Potter universe, though, I'm not a wizard. I'm not a witch, even though sometimes I act like a witch because I like to act as different characters. But in the Harry Potter universe, the janitor was known as a squib. He knew magic happened, but he didn't do it. I'm a squib. I know magic happens. I don't do it. Do I think magicians do magic? I think that it appears that magic happens and that the magician is doing it, but no. The magician is doing it concomitantly to the magic that you see. In other words, he's saying abracadabra, waving his magic wand, and something that you think is magical happens. Did he cause the magic? No, but his body was choreographed with the magic that you see. Who choreographs it? God. That's how it works. So is magic real? Yes. Are magicians real? Well, if magic happens when they're around, then they're magicians, but they're choreographed. The magic that I see, I'm a squib. It's because I don't say abracadabra and something magic happens. It's just not coordinated that way. I see things it's magic. I can't explain it. Well, I try to explain it. It's like there's other beings in other dimensions that I can't see that are maybe doing things. Or they're concomitantly, I can't remember how to say the word, concomitantly doing something, but it's all arranged by God, Source, and in the end, everything is done by Source through us as expressions of Source. Thank you for your kind attention. This has been Harry Weaver, your constant narrator.